Just testing the streaming software. Exit connection. Just seeing if it catches. Okay, that's fine. It's alright. I've moved over to OBS today, so I'm just testing it. But I just thought I'd do a bit of an update. I don't normally do updates as regular as I used to, and I've had a few people ask me, can I try and do them weekly? So I'll try. Obviously, with the whole COVID scenario, there isn't a lot going on. But I thought I'd do an update today, sort of where my situation is. I've got to admit, the whole fiasco with the UK government and their handling of the COVID is a bit... No, it's not a bit. It's an absolute disaster. Although the main issue with that, I mean, I can understand people trying to push it in their own political agenda, direction, whatever they're up to, which is where they seem to be steering it. My personal view is it does seem to be, it's involving a lot of private cash being generated off the taxpayer, in my personal opinion. But just got to weather it and see where we are by the end of this year. Because obviously we were supposed to be coming out of it now, and now we're being told it's going to be, maybe the summer, which is really next December, because they keep moving the gateposts every month virtually. But anyway, pushing that to one side. So I'm currently back in Spain. I've spent a bit of time on the home for a month, because I do a fair bit of work over in the UK at the minute. It is extremely busy, which is another reason I haven't been as productive on the videos. Although that's calming down now, because when I first started, there's about 3 years worth of work I had to catch up on. Plus modernising a lot of the stuff, because it's still the same way it was a decade ago. So there's a lot of changes that had to be made, then adapted, updated, processes created. It is a massive task, but I'm quite happily looking forward to going back to work for about a month, then try and get back to Spain. One of the things that is frustrating me a bit is these whole COVID tests. I had to get one when I was coming out to Spain, and they've changed the rules before I've got back, so I'm now going to get one to go back. And at the same time, the UK is even still saying, you still probably have to quarantine yourself as well, so it's a complete waste of time, money and effort. But hey-ho. You think, well, why? What if you had COVID entering the UK and they stopped you flying? Well, the problem you've got is that I was seriously ill and on my own insurance, maybe I'd actually have to get a medical flight back to the UK in the way you would if you're covered by normal medical insurance for a medical emergency. But to be fair, if I take the test, what's it actually proving? They'll go, you've got COVID, don't travel, and we can fleece you for more money, because then you have to have another test to say you're clear and book another flight so we can make money on that as well. But ultimately, if I'm going to be quarantined in the UK anyway, it's not going to make too much difference. Because you're not sort of saying you're clear, off you go. Because let's be honest, it's the same in the UK. I'm working from home most of the time. I'm not really engaging with too many people. Where's my risk? Going to the airport or going for the COVID test? Because I remember I was listening to the radio when people were talking about the COVID tests, and they were talking about, I'm worried that I've got a heart condition, I've got this, I'm worried I want to go and get tested in case I've got COVID. And I'm sitting there going, you do realise if you've got worried about COVID, the worst place you want to be is a test centre where people think they've got COVID. It's the one place you want to be avoiding like the plague, is being near anybody that has it. That's just a bit of common sense. I mean, it's just an absolute sham. But anyway, that aside, I mean, Spain's going really well. We love it here. Brexit's a complete sham. I was just reading the BBC headline, I haven't read the news story, about truck drivers having their ham sandwiches stopped at the border, the Dutch border, because obviously it's all to do with imported meats and stuff. You think it's laughable, but we had exactly the same. My friend's kids, when we went over at Disney World to the US, He'd had a bacon sandwich on the plane, which was swiftly taken from him, and was his father had a bit of a lecture from one of the immigration officials about a bacon sandwich, because it was quite funny, because he was in the queue and the drug dogs walking up and down and could smell the bacon sandwich in his pocket. So it is one of those things, and I do think a lot of people don't realise how many things they have lost from leaving the EU. Myself, vive la vive, I'm just trying to just work my way through it. I'm not, to be fair, I'm not happy with the situation, but at the same time, if that's what around 50% of the British population want, fine, leave them with it. I do think you're going to see a lot of changes. I do think this on top of COVID is not going to help the UK economy. It's going to absolutely hammer it, because at the moment you've got problems with the ships for the fishing. Because one of the things that I was aware of years ago is they used to fly the lobsters from the north of Scotland over to Paris for the restaurants in Paris. Not that there's many restaurants open right now. So the thing you've got there is it's taking 3 or 4 days to do the paperwork, which means a lot of the fishing industry that was the big push on taking back control. The people ain't buying the fish because they can't. It's taking too long to get the fish to market. Will that sort itself out in a month? Let's wait and see. I mean, the whole flying them to Paris was going on in the 70s. So I assume it's just going to take them a month or 2 months, or being bureaucratic 3 months, to actually work out a streamlined process. But it does seem there's a ridiculous amount of work to actually make it fluid. At the moment, it's just a complete farce. Obviously, all this preparation we were told they've been doing for 4 years, it does seem they hadn't done much with it. I mean, where's Form B762 from 1974? Because that form may still actually be relevant. They could have just been digging out the old documents that were there before the whole EU merger, and just going over them and modernising and updating them. The information wouldn't have been far off. Simon Hollinson, many people are now having to leave Spain after Brexit agreement and now Spanish restrictions. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I will say. If you are British and going back to Spain, UK at some point, make sure you take your residency card. A little green residency card is something you'll need to make sure you can get through the airport. Although, don't get me wrong, British Airways managed to make a bit of a fiasco of that. Now, whether it was British Airways or whether they phoned up the immigration officials in Barcelona and they said no, it's not legal now because it's no longer valid, I don't know, because you won't get that level of information out of a newspaper article. But there was people restricted from flying back to Spain, even though it's where they live, simply because the documents they didn't accept their residency certificate, which actually is official that you can come to Spain. Absolute nonsense. But hey ho, we're in the first stages of Brexit, and I expect these issues to be running till March. And then there's bigger stuff about imports, exports. Myself, I've had to cancel some electronics simply because it seems they don't know when they'll get them from the UK to Spain. So I'll just cancel it and I'll stick it in my bag. Problem solved. Petrus Veritas, hi Matt, working now, hope you and your family are well. Please do a video what to do now about this whole shift about Brexit and what we'll need to move to Spain for good. Stay safe, mate. I will do. What I'm actually waiting for at the moment is March, because one of the problems you've got in the first few months is there'll be production of some information and then they'll retract it and rewrite it as they start to adapt, because they'll go, this is the process, this is what you must do. Then they'll realise it doesn't work properly, then they'll change it. So no point looking at it for a few months. I think the average person now is waiting until things settle down anyway, because it's just going to be problematic. It's hard enough flying backwards and forwards, never mind trying to do paperwork at the same time. That just makes it 10 times worse. Stephen Birth, morning mate, hope all is well. Nice and sunny for a change here, just about to go work. Enjoy your day, buddy. As you can see here, the sun's beaming. Yesterday we went down to Nadine's. Nadine runs a charity shop down in Playa Flamenca. They have the charity shop at the back, and at the front's a restaurant. As obviously just had the Christmas, all the stuff the kids are a bit old for now. I say I put it in the car. April did all the sorting. April sorted all the stuff out that they're a bit old for, and we took it down to the charity shop. At the same time, we stopped there and had a couple of Cornish pasties and had breakfast before heading on anywhere. But yeah, I mean, if you're down in Playa Flamenca, do pop by and support the charity shops. Well, this charity shop's been quite hammered with this whole COVID, like everybody else has. I've got to admit, my work's been consistently busy, thanks to A, it's schools, but B, it's a ring fence contract, in the sense of it's sort of locked in till the 2030s. So the work's going to be continuous up till then. No time I'll end up leaving there, it'll probably end up in a dispute with somebody over something that hasn't been done. But beyond that, should be all good. Well, yeah, Stephen Birth, I suppose you better catch up on the day off you had the other day. You have to get twice as much work done today. Yeah. The weather's looking a lot better here. I know in Madrid, looking at some of the video footage that's been on the news, they've had snow up to about 2 foot deep, which I don't think they've had for a long time. I mean, the temperatures are below what they normally expect. It is fairly mountainous around Madrid, so I think a lot of the time it gets stopped by the mountains and they just have heavy rainfall normally. Not this year. Up on the alley towards the mountains on Alicante, the police were telling people not to go up there either, because they could get stranded. Simon Hollandson, are you now having to leave Spain? No. I mean, we're here permanently. I mean, we've been here 6 years now. The commute to UK will be continuous. Financially, we've got no financial issues. So I'm not expecting any issues from the state, and a lot of the restrictions and stuff will change. I mean, since I've been here, it seems like things change annually anyway. I mean, even with SIP cards, your medical cards, they'll go, that's the process, go and get it, and then 2 months later, completely changed. Why? Oh, well, too many people have been using the SIP cards that weren't entitled to them, so we changed the system to make everybody redo everything, because then we validate everything. It's much easier to do it that way than trying to track people. So what they do is they just change the process. But our residencies are valid, because we already have residencies. We've been here for, like I said, 6 years. So our paperwork's already up to date, it's valid. We bring in a fair bit of money to the economy. We're not financially reliant on the economy, so I don't see us having too many issues. I'm also looking at some business ventures at the moment. There's about 5 different ventures, which will keep me extremely busy, because work, I'm just trying to get it to go on an even keel, so I can get out of there from 5 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, so I can get on with other stuff. Yeah, Stephen Birth, correct, mate, that's the one. Yeah, twice as much work today. Yeah, so it's just keeping things on an even keel. I do think Spain will settle down. They don't. The thing is, Spain's been more proactive in trying to get people to come here, where the UK, there's been a negative response pretty much, especially in the media. They're not very positive in wanting people in the UK. I mean, it's not me being negative about it. It's like they don't want foreigners coming into the country, taking their jobs and changing restrictions, doing all this. But it's actually hit a lot of industry in the UK, because one of the big ones is education. I mean, I used to work near Birmingham University, and it was predominantly Chinese and Asian students. So the don't come here scenario has hit them, financially, and the COVID would have hit them. So the point being is, they forget there's a whole industry there that's relying on foreign students. Now, the NHS must be at least 26-30% foreign labour from predominantly outside of the EU. So that's another weird one as well, where people go, oh, we don't want it. You have to have them because we don't have enough trained people. I mean, it's a bit like a lot of British nurses. They go to America, they go to Australia, because the lifestyle's better, etc. It's a very peculiar one because you get migration naturally, and that's one thing that doesn't even get accounted for. You have natural migration. Stephen Burst, I'm still taking Christmas lights down for them. Although I didn't realise how many sets I'd actually put up. Mustache, have a good day, mate. Alright, have a safe one, mate. Tingle Tingles, very odd article mentioning pensioners giving up UK citizenship. I wonder if journalists just do not understand the difference between residency and citizenship. I don't think they read half the stuff they write, in my personal opinion. The thing is, they don't understand dual residency either. Because you can have a single citizenship and dual residency. I don't think they look into it sometimes enough, and sometimes it is simply just to grab a headline, and then when you read down the story, it doesn't match what the headline was. I'm not saying the Daily Mail is one of the worst culprits for that, but I don't read the Daily Mail. But I have been sent stuff before and said to people, try reading the article, because the title you've read, and if you read the article, it's completely different. It's all to do with read this, and then when you read it, you go, that's not what they're saying. But hey, they've had all the ads around the page and all that sort of stuff. They've made their money, and that's what the game is. That's why I just don't bother with tabloids at all. But yeah, I mean, people ain't giving up UK citizenship. Like you're saying, do they understand the difference? I don't think so. It's a peculiar one. But the problem you've got is people read that and then they'll go, oh, these British people aren't British anymore. They're betraying us. They're leaving the country. Da da da. And they have not understood the article or the information, or even reviewed it and says, well, that's not what's happening. They're getting a residency. They're still a UK citizen. They still have a British passport, etc. They're just a resident of another country. I mean, even on my desk, hang on a sec. Look at that. That's a Philippines residency card. So the point being is, did I give up my citizenship? No, it's a residency card. It's a 13A visa for the Philippines. But I'm a resident of Spain. It's very peculiar, some of the things. And I do think the media make things 10 times worse. What is sad, though, is a lot of these things get taken to the poll. Not Poland, but to the poll in the sense of this is where people vote on things that they often didn't fully understand or were possibly misled, being polite. Because even around the stuff on the COVID stuff, I do keep saying to people, you know, you've got to look at the stats, ignore the media stuff, just go through stats over the last 5 years and make your own mind up. Don't get into an argument with me about it. I'm just saying, just look at statistics. Because to be fair, I'm really sick and tired of going over the COVID stuff where people arguing. I don't want to know. They mentioned that the demographics will change over time from OAPs to younger digital nomads, perhaps. It would make sense, and I'll tell you one of the key reasons for that is the speed of my internet here is phenomenal. On the coast, in sort of a village, it sort of sits between Guatemala and Torrevieja town. I've got internet speeds up to about between 300 and 600 meg. Yeah, in the UK, I struggle to get 50. So the digital nomad thing makes perfect sense. Because, here you got 12 hours of sunshine, quiet environment. I would say the crime's fairly low in my own experience here, and the times I've been here, that it's been very, very minor. It seems to be more focused around empty properties than anything else. So you've got a nice environment to live in, got super fast internet, you've got good infrastructure. You've also got the other side. If you set up in, is it Estonia? They do they set up e-businesses for specifically around working online, and obviously in the EU, you'll be able to do that. So you can still work online, still do all your paperwork, keep everything above board, and and have the beach on one side, have the lake on the other, have super fast internet, even run a server, and at a lower cost of living than you'll get in most places in the UK, unless you're up north. John Fox, hey, it's good to see you. It's been a while. I'm glad you managed to sort with working. You're still in Spain. Yeah, I travel to the UK. There is some other stuff I'm working on at the moment, which are probably going to take me a good year to get my head around it fully. It's converting drawings into 3D models, and from the 3D models, using them for data management of buildings. So, for example, let's just say a window, when it was installed, what the measurements are, what its structure is, and when it's due for change, and then it can output reports on the information that's inside that model, so you can actually go, right, that's the window, that's where it's going, all that sort of lovely stuff that's run out in a report and helps manage buildings. But it's going to be an interesting long year, because I want to get into a VR scenario, so you can actually walk around in the buildings as well. Try and get it to a point where you're doing regular snapshots. So if you have a renovation project, you redraw that area, because the square meterage won't change, but say it's had new kitchens, new doors, you update it with that 3D information. And that's something I'm working on at the moment, which is not a 5-minute task. Yeah, it's tingles. Estonia e-residency, yes, there you go. So there's your business solution if you're working online. That's obviously within the EU. So there is ways to become self-sufficient and work within the system, even if coming over from the UK. So digital nomad, there was definitely opportunities there. Hence, I'm talking about these drawings. It's a similar thing. It'll take me about a year to get my head around and being able to convert them very quickly. But once I've got that is a massive business opportunity, because the UK is evolving that way. I think the regulations changed 2016, where all new build constructions were supposed to be BIM models, and then you've got the Autodesk integration, all that sort of stuff. Lovely stuff. It's supposed to be done in 2016. But you've got a lot of legacy stuff. You've got a lot of stuff that still isn't anywhere near where it should be. There's a market there for evolving this stuff. Yeah, that's it. There you go, John Fox. Okay, I understand. I work in facilities management. Sounds good and up to date for once. Exactly. I deal with life cycle. I look after 43 schools at the moment for life cycle. I've been approached for some other projects by other companies, because it's a bit of a niche market, but to be fair, this one's just getting in a position where I can drop from nearly 7 days a week, well, pretty much was 7 days a week for over a year, down to a 9 to 5, which then means I've got time to evolve this new stuff, which will make it easier to manage. Because if you redraw them, like I said, because I mean we do about 200 projects a year. So if you went out there with a scanner and scanned that location every 200 times a year, 200 projects, scan that area every time, you could keep it up to date quite easily. Where you've got problems is where you have boiler changes and stuff like that. You'd have to pick those up as well, but it's not going to be so difficult, especially with the LiDAR stuff now. What you have with the new iPads have got this. Basically, you can people are using it for 3D drawings, but it's a bit more technical than that, because what it's doing is measuring the light. So you've got depth, and if you've got depth, you can convert the information into a physical object. that physical object could be a boiler replacement. Now, don't get me wrong, I have not tested it on the iPad. This is the point. This is stuff I'm looking at the moment. But that's where I can see there's massive opportunities here. So you change a boiler out, you can rescan a specific boiler. If the pipe work's changed, do a bit of scanning on that. Even if it's just to get a feel for it and then touch it up in the actual CAD itself. But the point is, it gets you in the right ballpark, and that's what I'm looking for, setting up and organising. But like I said, it's not going to be a 5-minute task. I've got to get all the software to talk to each other. I've got to get the time, look at the quality of it. I mean, if you're looking at a decent scanner, you're probably talking about £18,000 realistically. They're not cheap bits of kit, so you don't just sort of, I'll buy it and see how it goes. I've got to make sure it works. Do you work for an SPV then? No. An SPV, by the way, for those who don't know, is a specialist payment vehicle, which is basically they manage the finances, normally in PFIs, publicly funded initiatives. So what you normally have is, like, say, a local authority, then you have the facilities provider, then the SPV is monitoring what the FM company is spending, making sure that they're managing the project correctly because they're responsible for the money, and as a group they manage a contract. I work on behalf of an SPV, but I'm part of the facilities company, so I deal with the life cycle for the facilities. I manage the budgets, and basically make sure that it's spent correctly and on the right stuff, and try to reduce failures. But it's often difficult when you're coming in halfway through a contract, because you've got to go all the way back to the beginning and assess where the people have been spending money previously, because a lot of the time they can be spending it in the wrong place. Historically, I've worked for multiple companies with the same sort of setup, and they spend a lot on painting and decorating and things like that, and forget things like boilers, HVAC, heating, ventilating and air conditioning, windows, doors, fire partitioning, all this lovely stuff, which is often overlooked because the people that moan a lot, the face-to-face clients, are normally using it as an office space, a schoolroom, a surgery or whatever, and have no idea about what's above the ceiling. So they don't care about that, even though that's where the money needs to be spent, because they only complain when it fails. They want it painted, they want it nice, they want it beautiful, they want new furniture, all that lovely stuff. Yeah, they can often suck the money out of the contract, because they keep spending it in the wrong areas, leaving some expensive bits of kit with very limited resources to replace them, which is the risky bit on these contracts. But yeah, it's educating people to half the battle, because if you explain to them and said, well, if you've got no heating, are you going to moan at me? I said, you want all that painted, I'll paint the whole school or whole building for you, but you're going to complain that you've got no boiler. Because if you're not, it's fine, we'll do that for you. Just write here that you refuse to have the boiler changed, we'll paint everything for you, because that's what you won't give us access for, or whatever. At which point they go, no, I need the boiler. Okay, well, you're not getting the painting this year. John Fox, yeah, that one. I used to work for Interserve. I'd been taken over by Mighty. The idea sounds really good, though. It would be nice to see 3D layouts rather than a plan from top down. Yes, I mean, I've had it in many contracts where it's even just PDF drawings. So when you're trying to find, let's end up in a technical chat this morning. Like, for example, you're trying to find sewer pipe work, and the drawings have the original 9 pipes, but over the years there's been additions to it, alterations. There is no information. Going down this route, you can start going, right, we've got the main M&E kit, we've got the roof structure, we know it's timber frame, we know the windows are UPVC, this is the spec, the profile, we've got the electrics, we've got all the distribution system, we've got and then you start, right, now we have to do some scanning of the underground and get all the pipes. Now, I've managed to get a good contractor this year that actually does all the pipes anyway, because they'll actually go out and flush them and do his surveys on them. And I've started saying to them, saying, right, when you're doing that, give us a full report of where the pipes are. And they'll give us a report showing the pipes, because they don't have to be 100% accurate, don't get me wrong. Half the time, I just need to know it's there, because after that, there may be other reasons I need to get assessments on it. For example, you may have old clay pipes that have sort of collapsed. So if I know there's a pipe in there and where it is and how far it is, I can estimate how much the repair is or the replacement, because sometimes you can put another sheath inside the old pipe and they'll actually repair it. You can flush it out and then repair it, and then that sleeve becomes the new pipe. But it helps if you know how many meters long it is, where it is, and does it even exist, because sometimes there is no information. So scanning all this stuff makes a lot of sense to me. And the other reason I'm interested in this, the big thing, is A, there's opportunity here as a secondary business later on, and B, the secondary business, A, I can set the standard in the business to say this is what I recommend and this is how to do it, this is the software I use, and then it helps everybody move forward with all their technology, because a lot of the time they're reliant on what the business gives you, where I'm more driven by, I'm actually interested in it, so I don't mind spending money on stuff if it's actually beneficial. For example, we do drone surveys for roofing areas. Now, we've already been talking recently about thermal imaging and LiDAR, so we can get all the angles of the roofs and stuff, because we know some roofs are not constructed correctly. Some of this gets caused by cost-saving exercises. Local authorities are very good at that, where you're then trying to shave 10 million off a project, and it's got to come from somewhere, because they still want exactly what they ordered, just not pay for it all. So you then got to try and tweak things, and that's what happens. They'll start going, well, they want the building a little bit bigger, so they build it a little bit bigger, but then the roof may drop to save money, but then the angles then become wrong for the waterfall and things like that. You won't think it happens, but it does, and it happens on a massive scale, and it's not small stuff. It is painful, because you start having other issues, because those angles were done for a specific reason, like waterfall, because if you haven't got the water falling from the roof at the right angle, you get water leaks, you get water sitting behind things that wouldn't have normally had a problem. All sorts of lovely, interesting issues that become legacy ones that run for years and very hard to correct because the roof design was wrong. So yeah, it's quite painful. So you work for Interserve. To be fair, I got offered the job at Interserve for their life cycle stuff, but because originally I was looking at, because their office is near the airport at Birmingham, and I was thinking I could park in their car park and disappear on the plane at the weekends. But they weren't paying enough, and it's not the first time Interserve are about 15k less than the other firms I was working with, but at the same time they do seem to be a bit more technical. So maybe you've got some input on that. I do think they're a bit more switched on with some of the data side. I know Mighty have a lot of processes and stuff in structure, but it's like anywhere in the FM industry, everyone complains about where they left. They often don't bring forward the good stuff, because like Carillion, a lot of people complain about Carillion. Myself, because I noticed there was money missing in Carillion, and to be fair, highlighting that is a career ender. But what you have to do, they had great processes. They knew the structure, they knew how to set that up, but was it a Ponzi scheme? In my personal belief, yes it was. Was there stuff I highlighted financially that was not only a massive risk but a massive loss, and told to shut up in my own business? The answer is yes. Because Because when you're winning contracts that have no profit in them, in fact, you're going to take on a loss simply because you can declare it to the market as a must win, then for me that is the start of a Ponzi scheme, in my personal opinion. Now, you will see that is quite a common theme in some of the businesses, because when you go on, let's just call it LinkedIn. LinkedIn will always say, oh, we're hiring 100 new engineers. We've won an £80 million contract. They don't mention they've had to replace 100 engineers because they left. They make it out there's a new contract there. Often it's not. It's they left. Christmas period, a lot of engineers leave. The other side of this being is they go at £80 million contract. Not the profit and loss expected on it. So there may be no profit on it, maybe a loss already expect. But they go, we've got an £80 million contract. It's not worth 80 million. It's worth minus 1 million, for example. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on business-wise. There, if you read between the lines, you can see it's not so cut and dry. Tingle's proactive expenditure usually well down the list, and then it costs so much more when the stuff actually fails. That's it. It really is. With PFIs, a lot of it's corrections, and if you catch it mid-term, you can do it. Nearly all contracts have enough liquidity in them to actually turn it around. That's why you've got to go back to the beginning and then move forward, because you need to find what they've done over that period, because they may have replaced stuff they shouldn't have done, but because they replaced it, let me give you an example. So you've got a 25-year contract. You put in a boiler here. It should have been changed here, but it was changed here. So over that period, it should have only been replaced once or twice, with the second one being at the end of the contract. So you've got a handover period that will still fit within before it needs renewing again. But when you do it early, you now need 3, which means, it doesn't sound a lot until I say, well, say a boiler is £26,000. That's an extra £26,000 you've just injected as a cost into that contract. You scale that up across multiple contracts, multiple buildings, it's no longer 26 grand, it's 2 to 4 million that you have to inject at the end of a contract to basically cover anything like that that's occurred over the period of time. But if you can find it early on, what you do is you sweat assets. So you've got boilers, just a simplified version. So you've got boilers that are due for replacement, and try and stretch them 2 or 3 years and try and get them to push outside the contract. Try and replace them as late as possible to get that 5 years past the end of the contract. So you keep some money back for them, but at the same time, what you're trying to do is get them so you've got the 5 year at the end and replace them late, because that would cover the ones that were changed early, because you're not going to change it as many times. But you've got to be on the ball with it all, and that's why the information is so important, having the right information, because if you don't, you set yourself up to fail. And that's why I've done like 3 years work in a year, is to get it to a point where you can actually manage every single asset, every bit of detail on a building, start looking at how you can extend the life of everything, not to generate profit, but to simply make sure that you have no risks, or your risks are covered and the program's working properly. But it is a tedious, long-winded, lot of research, a lot of paperwork, a lot of spreadsheets, and a lot of pain to get it to that. But that's why I'm sort of sitting there now going, okay, we're getting in a much better position. I can get my VR headset out and I can start looking at 3D stuff that I want to do. John Fox, laugh out loud. Yep, that's Interserve. He bought all the support services. We're still on Windows 7, so they're behind in IT. They are good in some ways. There you go. I mean, that's the funny thing. I mean, I do find within FM they often have old Dell machines and HPs and whatever. Yeah, I can't use, for security reasons, the £3,000 Mac that's in front of me. Everything's got to be done on a £400 machine. So it's a bit frustrating with that. Yardi system, Tinto. I'll have a look at that. Yardi. I'll have a look at that, because one of the things I have on my side is, because obviously that one's around real estate. I'll have a look at it, because one of the things we have is scalability, because some of these estates are quite big. I mean, for example, when I was at Birmingham University, they had 160 buildings. Now, some of those buildings were blocks of flats, for example, or large complex parts of a state, plus then you have a lot of variance in there, for example chemical labs, or some doctors being experimenting with something and left plant equipment in a plant room for the last 10 years completely switched off because nobody knows who owns it. When you've got those sorts of things, this is where I'll have a look into the software, but these are the sort of things I want to try and document where everything's identified. Because you go, hang on a minute, who put that in there? You're going to pay to take it back out. Because sometimes it can cost you $5,000 to get something removed, and it's not even yours. And I'll tell you where the funny ones are, is fridges. Now, bear in mind the old environmental thing went mental on fridges around the CFCs, but in the NHS, there's a ridiculous amount of fridges people have brought in from home. So you've got a fridge that is 1997, which will still be CFC, that somebody's thought, well, we need a fridge for our milk, and brought it in from home. Well, the fact is, who's paying for that disposal fee? You've got people complaining about the cost of energy bills going up, yet people are bringing in fridges and other bits and stuff from home. Microwaves is another one, because they don't pat test this stuff either, just bring it in. So there's pat test costs on it, there's the fact of disposal fees on it, and the fact that it's been maintained even though it never existed before, and the energy bill's going up, what's going on. All these sort of things are part of running a contract, which hence having labels on everything and actually knowing what everything is and where it is, you've got a fighting chance to go, why is that there? That's not ours. And it's got to be added to it. So yeah, I'll have a look into that. Tino. Yard is a building management software right into your field. I'll have a look into it, especially if it integrates with Autodesk, because that's an important bit. Because it's not just me. Because once I get this going, there'll be other people will be trying to utilise what I have to fit into their contracts. So it's got to be expandable, but the other side we have is security is another issue, but I'll have a look into it, because I'm a strong believer in partnering, because what you get is, say, the developers behind that get involved and they're seeing an opportunity to expand their business, because if you've got a large company like ours taking an interest, they've got somebody that can say, hey, we work with, and B, they can evolve their software on the back of that, because we become the guinea pigs, because we know what we want, and they suddenly start seeing, right, we'll invest some time, you tell us what you need and how it works, and we'll develop it, then we'll sell it at the end of it. So yeah, I'll have a look into that. Yeah, I mean, Interserve and Mighty, I think one of the guys was out in the Middle East, I don't know if he's still there, because there was a funny thing when I was with Carillion, because there's certain parties there couldn't get a promotion, and personally, their belief, not mine, I'll dodge that one, but it is their belief, they couldn't go any higher in the business because of their ethnic background. But one of them was still a director in the Middle East for Mighty. And the other one's got another firm where he's a senior director on another company. But I'm trying to think of his name now. Saeed was one of the guys, because Saeed used to be with Carillion when I was out there when we were working on the Shell oil contract. But I think I don't know if he's still with Mighty now. I know the whole environment's changed out in the Middle East. It's a very difficult environment now compared to what it used to be. There was a lot of transition going on out there while I was there, because they have what's called Omanisation, and they're doing it in all the different countries, where you're supposed to increase the number of locals over expats. And that's what I find quite funny when people say expats is a British thing. It's not. I mean, it's quite a common term out in the Middle East relating to anybody that isn't from that country. So we had, for example, 9,000 expats with Al Futtaim up in Abu Dhabi. They're the guys doing all the construction work. They're predominantly from Pakistan and India. We had, I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 down in Oman, predominantly from Pakistan and India. They're all expats. That's the term pretty much used for anybody that's not from that country. But it's an interesting time. But what they've been trying to do is remove expensive guys like myself and replace them with cheaper labour, which works to a certainty, but then they start hitting problems when it starts becoming decision making sometimes over business as usual, because when you're trying to run some of these massive industries, I mean, Oman, when I was there, I mean, obviously the market's changed a bit. They were making about $100 million a day on the oil, so they're not small companies, and they do have a lot of cash flow, and they have a massive setup. I mean, for the day-to-day support services for the industry, I think on our side there was about 1,000 engineers and logistics staff. You know, sometimes it's catering, cleaners. You know, because we've got desert encampments and stuff that we look after. But the point being is, it's a massive task. It's not small scale stuff. But then they try and replace people with cheaper labour from other countries or locals. It's an interesting world. But the funny thing is, it's so political to say some of the stuff that actually goes out in the Middle East. You know, when people say, well, a lot of the local, you know, because you'll speak, they struggle to get locals to work. And then it's like, oh, that's racist. It's like, but when everybody's saying the same thing, because it's often, they've been spoon-fed a lot of the time. Everything's been gifted. So I mean, if you look at Oman, on how the decree was raised and people were told to come back to the homeland and all that sort of stuff, they were guaranteed a house and all that lovely stuff. There's a lot of people that simply works only secondary, because they're already getting everything for free anyway. So when you get in that sort of environment, it's very hard to get some people motivated. Other people, fine, you find some really fantastic people. But it's a bit like where I had an admin. She didn't know how to use Microsoft Office. She couldn't write an email. She only worked about 3 hours a day. Just to do a report from me would take about a week to 2 weeks. In the end, it was just quicker doing it myself, and I could do it in about 2 hours. But the point being is, it was very, very hard work. And I know, I mean, the Sultan died there now, but he was very keen on changing the way people were, to try and get a bit of more work ethic in people, a bit more pride, a bit more engagement. It wasn't an easy step. The cyber shop 123 prayer time in the office comes to a stop in Saudi. Yes, it was the same out in the desert, but they also had different prayer times as well. That was the other thing. Depending if you're from Arab background or whether you're from Asia, you know, Indian and Pakistan, they went at different times. But yeah, it does come to a standstill. It's a peculiar thing, but I loved it out in that region. Deserts were great. Andy Sharon, hi, how are you going? Hope all's well for today. But yeah, I thought I'd do this update today just to say things are still moving along. We've banked all a load of money from last year. We're going to be banking a load again this year. I'm hoping to be buying a place in the very near future. We've got enough there for a deposit, but the place we've looked at, my wife likes, it's sort of increased our cost by about 40,000. But to be fair, where it is, it's a nice penthouse apartment with 3 balconies, etc. I'm just going to have to work harder this year. Because work-wise, there's money being banked every month, but I just need to get some of these projects to land. If I get 2 or 3 projects land this year, I don't think it's going to be an issue. John Fox, you're right, it's hard to get a promotion. I'm an electrician, also an AP. All my managers are technically incompetent, so it's a bit of a headache most days. Feel the pain, mate. Feel the pain. It's it's a peculiar setup. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some electrical vacancies at my place if you're interested. But yeah, it's a difficult one to get promoted, and a lot of the time it's easier to move firms. I mean, if you want to get promoted, the easiest way, to be fair with you, is actually apply for a supervisor's role in another firm. That would be easier than trying to get promoted in your own business. It sounds crazy, but it's true. You're more likely to get a respect from another firm than the firm you work for. Don't know why, it just seems to be that way, unless you're playing golf on the weekend, all that sort of lovely stuff. Not saying that's true, that's my personal opinion. But myself, I don't expect any movement in the business myself, which is why I focus on other projects like the BIM management and personal development. I mean, I can run larger contracts, I have done. It's just that right now this one suits me. I can get backwards and forwards to Spain if the governments don't keep changing things. Wages aren't too bad, and at the same time I've got the hours down to a working week near enough now. Don't get me wrong, there will be some of this year will be extremely busy, but the majority of it, we've got processes in place. I've modernised it, brought everything up to an electronic format, so it's got a lot more efficient than when I arrived. So I mean, that's the thing, I don't expect any thanks for anything, don't get me wrong. What I expect is to make my life easier for myself, which is half the thing. Don't assume everything's for somebody else, because when you do that, there's no point doing it, because most companies don't give you enough recognition. You're better off evolving things to suit yourself. The BIM stuff is out of interest for me. If I can get this into VR headsets and stuff, that'll be phenomenal. Because A, it shows I know what I'm doing, but B, it makes my job easier, and it makes it more interesting. It gets me off spreadsheets and into VR environments, a bit more site development stuff, and it makes the job better. You know, that's what continuous improvement should be about. Yourself as much as the business. And the business won't actually, like you say, won't promote you, whatever. Focus on yourself. How do you get to the next step? How do you, if you can't get a promotion, well, what do you want to do to move forward? Where do you want to be? The cyber shop. How is your maintenance company doing these days, in these sad times? Well, I'll be perfectly blunt. Myself, I'm too busy in the UK, but Igor is flat out. I mean, I'm actually going to be painting an apartment today. There's an apartment we're putting back out for rent. There's already been interest in it for March. So I've just got to paint the bedroom today. I've already done the sitting room, changed the electrics. So it's had new lights in all the rooms. Some of the switches were changed. Just needs the one bedroom finishing, then it's a mop, sweep, getting it ready. But yeah, I mean, there's still work there. I know it's a lot quieter, but a lot of people have been doing things like their kitchen refurbs, because a lot of the kitchens here are 90s, 80s, need full modernisation. But there's a lot of people that own them that would normally come out and then think, I need to do the kitchen, and they keep doing it, I need to do the kitchen. But now, haven't been able to come on holiday, still got the money in the bank, so guess what they do? Igor, can you fit the kitchen for us? Can you do the bathroom for us? So that's been extremely busy on stuff like that, because it's people want to do it, but they're normally coming on holiday. But as they've got the money and not coming on holiday, they've just been asking for the work to be done instead. So it's good. I can't grumble. Yeah, John Fox, I might have a word with you in the future. The shift pattern is good. It's 4 on and 4 off. The wages are underpaid there as well. You're right about Interserve. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's under my name, so I'm not hard to find, and it's got this handsome face on there, so it's not hard to locate me. Touch base on LinkedIn. I can put you in touch with some people that can help you if you're looking to change roles. It's not a problem. Right, so I've got it. Like I said, I've got to go and do a bit of painting. I've got to pick my son up at 3:30. He should finish at 5, but he wants to come home at 3:30 today from school because if you don't have a lunch, I think the lunch. If you have a school lunch, you can stay till 5, and if you don't have a lunch, you can go at 3:30. But he's having his lunch and he still wants picking up at 3:30 because I know what it is. He wants to mess around on his VR headset. So yeah, I've got to pick him up at 3:30. Didn't want yesterday because his mate was back to school yesterday. So I wanted to talk to him on the bus on the way there and on the way back. The updates over the Christmas and all that lovely stuff. I mean, that's one thing I will say in Spain. Schools are still on. The UK, I'm not 100% what they're up to. It makes my life difficult because I've got work to plan around the schools. Not being selfish here, by the way. It's just that we have a whole supply chain of materials and things where I can bring things forward if I know about it. But if it's suddenly rushed, it becomes painful, and the suppliers don't want it. My contractors don't want to hold too much stuff if the work ain't going to go ahead, because obviously you can have thousands of pounds worth of gear sat there, and then someone saying, "No, we're not doing it till the summer now." I'm trying to avoid all that, but let's see what I can do, because if I can pull some of this work forward for summer, it'll make my life easier in summer, which means I can fly back to Spain in holiday season and maybe take the family up to Granada or somewhere else in Spain, travel around a bit more. Yeah, John Fox, thanks for the advice as well. Yeah, it's tried and tested, mate. The thing is, you've got to look out for yourself, and it's not being selfish. It's basically, if you want to move on in life, you have to do it yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. It's a bit like what I do. I moved into life cycle because I seen it as a niche 13, 14 years ago. Because I was part of the original people that did the asset surveys for Carillion. I think the first contract was Siemens turbines. And we evolved it because I could see the opportunities there, and that's when I started getting into Excel, understand how to do the formulas and evolve the spreadsheets, which meant I was started off doing the asset surveying. Surveying is another opportunity there on the side, by the way. Asset surveying pays anywhere between £200 and £400 a day, and if you get into it with the right firms, etc., you can earn a lot more money. Regular contracts. I mean, I did Mighties for them for the NHS. That was 600 hospitals and clinics for 10 months, and I just did the data. I was basically sorting out the surveyors' data because a lot of them were terrible at doing paperwork. Suited me. I was getting paid more than them sat at home. So you've got to create the opportunity sometimes. But that meant I moved into that. Then I moved on to the IAM side, Institute of Asset Management, the SFG20 for the PPM planning and all that sort of stuff. The SFG20 gives out the maintenance, because obviously there's people from all sorts of backgrounds here. But what you get is the PPM planning for your service. So, for example, fire alarm servicing, is it every 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And what the maintenance regimes are for the 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. I mean, even recently, I had to explain to somebody they're not for 3 months, because a 6 month and a 12 month have different maintenance to the 3 months. So that once you've got your assets, you generate the PPMs off it, and if you're working out the cost of a contract, you can take the timescales off those PPMs to generate your labour hours, and then can break that down into your different skill sets, and then that gives you your cost of engineers, how many engineers you need, what types of engineers, all that lovely boring stuff. But that's why I moved into that years ago. I could see there was a massive opportunity in it, and now it's managing finances on PFIs, making sure the budgets will last the length of the contract and beyond. So it's a lot of paperwork a lot of the time, but the good thing about that is it gives me a lot of flexibility, because like now, go back to the UK, I've got about 16 projects to go and review, set up the next batch of projects, and if the flights were available, I could do some working from home, because a lot of it's spreadsheet based and paperwork, doing all the project access forms and the making sure all the criteria is met for whatever's needed, doing the specifications and all the lovely boring stuff. But the reason it's boring is people don't want to do it, but it's often where the opportunities are, because it's troublesome, painful, long-winded. But that's why you start getting to, how do I take this from a paper-based system into a PDF? How do I take it from writing a new specification and stuff every time I do a project, down to tick boxes, and you just make it easier and easier and easier and easier. And the more you do it, the time gets like that. Your life gets so easy. Well, I shouldn't really say that. Not ridiculously easy, but it fits into a working day. Currently, it doesn't. Vention MGTOW. Wow, it's daylight there. The flat Earth people must be wrong. Yes, it's beaming sunlight here. It's actually warming up quite nicely here. Wouldn't say the same for Madrid. Madrid, I think, still -6. But yeah, it's fantastic on the coast. Good to see you, mate. And thanks for dropping in. John Fox, yes, log cycle's a good place to be. They spent 150,000 on a BMS upgrades over 3 sites. SFG20, my new pal, we were on the blue book till a month ago. Yeah, yeah. Life cycle, yeah, it's a great place to be, and to be fair, if you set up a lot of the spreadsheets and stuff right, it can generate a lot of the information that other people are manually doing. One of the things I'm doing at the moment is educating contractors to make it easier for them, and if it's easier for them, it's easier for me, because I'm not going to reshuffle and go, where's the certificate for this? Hang on, I need that itemized invoicing, I need this. Giving them a way to simplify how they generate their costs, into a breakdown of costs and labour for materials, etc., along with what certs are needed for specific types of work. Because obviously you've got asbestos in some locations, electrical certs, water certs, BMS connections, and certifying it. There's a lot of bits and pieces in there, but it's developing those processes, and that's where you can sometimes work your way into those jobs, because people don't like doing them. Engineers often don't like doing it because it's tedious and boring, but the fact is, once you've got control of it, you can automate a lot of stuff and simplify it and make it whatever you want it to be, which gives you a longer term opportunity. Because I always found this peculiar, because I know even years ago, when they were cutting the FM industry down, 2008 was the prime example, they were like, well, we'll get rid of admins, we'll get rid of this, and then the managers will end up doing about 5 times more work than they used to do. But on top of that, they didn't modernise a lot of the firms. So the point being is, it wasn't like they were bringing in automation. They just, because I know Mighty, from somebody I was speaking to on another contract, he had his own business, and it'd been, I think it was in Sandwell or Solihull. He had a large contract there that he'd been running for years, and Mighty undercut them and basically said, oh, we're going to manage it better than you. This is his words, so I can only take this in the context of the information I have at the time, which is what he was saying to me. So they'd undercut him by 50%. And he said to me, but the first thing they did after they'd got the work off the council, because the council were asking, how can you get it this cheap? And they said, oh, through automation. And I've always found that absolutely mental, in the sense of that's okay if it's office-based staff. But when you're down to engineers are hands-on the majority of the time, unless they're bogged down in paperwork, which they shouldn't be. But the first thing they did is they went up to him and said, oh, you'll do the contract and you'll do it 50% less. He said no and moved to Spain, and that's where I met him. And now the funny thing is, another company, I can't remember who it was, did exactly the same to mate my mind, Steve. 50% less against book price. And he just turned around and said, no, it's not worth it. And they're still trying to get him to go back to the contract, because the company went bust within 4 months, because quite simply they couldn't make it viable. But they did go to his house and they said, well, you might as well leave now while you still can, because you're coming into my house, stealing my business and insulting me by telling me I'll do it for half the price. I recommend you go now. But yeah, this is what I was saying earlier about when you see it on LinkedIn. We've won an £80 million contract. It's not talking profit and loss. It's just talking about a big number, which is a number often can be, in my personal opinion, pulled out of thin air. It's not based on the profitability or viability of the contract, which is where the risks are. Yes, Cybershot 1 to 3, shall I say it, method statements. Yes, I review many of those. And often, because it's not just the method statements, it's where you're going to put the skips, how you're going to access the corridors, all this lovely stuff, and then you've got the COVID stuff on top of that as well. So how are you staying away from people? How are you washing your hands? Are you traveling to site in your own vehicle? Loads and loads of stuff. And then obviously you've got the booking in books, logging out books, setting up a mini site, all this sort of stuff. And then you're sitting there going, some of these jobs are so simple. Why do we have so much paperwork? But health and safety took a simple working it. Was it the Act? It was the Working Safely at Work Act or something. I can't remember it now. It was some years ago. But it was like, it used to just be sat on the factory wall or whatever, and that was it. Now it's an entire industry. Yeah, it's painful. But they say, oh yeah, it's safety. But some of this stuff is not safety, it's bureaucracy. John Falk, that's all I've heard about Mighty undercutting and shutting stuff down. Yeah, there you go. And that's the problem. It all becomes cost saving. But it gets to a level, unless you've got a better solution, you're making things worse. Now, I can understand you want to have cost savings. Me, one of the first things I did was automate where I could. That made it more efficient. That's better. Doesn't mean I'm saying I need less staff or whatever. It's basically I'm making it more efficient because we needed to modernise anyway. But the point being is there's a big thing between... I mean, Carillion was a good one. It used to go, we need to save £20 million this year. And then they would want to save £1 million on a division or whatever. And there's no concept of what that million is going to do. It's like when you get rid of somebody and people suddenly realise what they used to do. I remember trying to get getting drawings done for a ventilation system, and this was in Carillion. I said, "Oh, I need some." Oh yeah, John does those. Okay, where's John? Oh, he went 2 years ago. And you haven't replaced him, you didn't train somebody up or anything else. No, we didn't realise that nobody else did the drawings. I said, well, I can do the drawings, it's just I'm not air conditioning. And I'm not HVAC. So for me, working out the flow rates and everything, I can do it, but what's the point when it should be done by somebody who's actually... that's their business and they can certify it, because I can't certify it because I'm not trained in it. I can work out the mathematics on it, don't get me wrong, but you've got rid of the one person that used to do it for the whole business, and nobody even noticed until I'd raised the question, we need this done. which then asks the question, how many other people are waiting for stuff? So don't get me wrong, it's literally, I was in the office and I asked him, and it's like, John used to do it, he's over there. There'll be loads of people that have said, yeah, they normally do it centrally, and they've been requesting stuff for the last 2 years and nothing's happened because the guy retired and nobody had even bothered informing anybody that there was nobody actually capable of doing the drawings anymore. Yeah, because it was a new system, you see. It wasn't, like for like, not an issue. It's when you've got new systems in, it's A, I don't have the time to do it, but B, I'd have to get into a level that I don't normally operate in. So it'd be a massive learning curve for me to make sure that it did what it was supposed to do. And it, quite simply, it's not worth my time or money. It should be the business providing that. So yeah, I fully understand. Yeah, let's get rid of somebody. What do they actually do before you get rid of them? No idea. I do think there's an ability sometimes to get rid of a lot of the management, within reason, because the problem you've got now is because they got rid of a lot of the administration in 2008, a lot of managers are used as admins more than anything else. So the point is, even that it becomes very difficult to get rid of somebody, and the pay for some of the managers isn't far off what an admin would get anyway. So it's a peculiar one now. But yeah, it's always cut costs. Yeah, difficult one. But FM's been like that since the 90s. I think it was when it started to change in the 90s, didn't it? Because you didn't really have life cycle back then. It used to be proactive and reactive. And then this whole new industry evolved. So you got all this top tier stuff where you may have a supervisor before that was pretty much running their own little contract. It then there's these extra tiers of people on top. Then health and safety become a massive industry. So you end up with 5 times as much paperwork as you used to do. For the most simplest task. So I remember being up at what was that contract? It's one up in Birmingham, where there's only one carpenter, one electrician, and myself. I was brought in as a resource to basically to get rid of the backlog and stuff. And the reason was electrician, ex rover worker, health and safety just come in, method statements as you mentioned. He went and did that full time and stopped doing any electrical work in servicing. He just stopped completely. Carpenter, never seen him do a day's work in a year there. But the point is, no maintenance was getting done. It was non-productive. And I used to do all the maintenance stuff. I just pop around, do all the work, and even had the director on the site turn around and says, "You know what, Matt?" It says, "Since you've been here, it's the first time I've ever seen all the lights working in the auditorium." Millennium Point, that's where it was. Millennium Point in Birmingham. Yeah, I mean, the director of the building actually turned around and said to me, "It's the first time I've seen all the lights working." So I used to come in at the weekends and stuff. I used to book as much overtime as possible because I was on agency rates, so I was absolutely fleecing it. Did all the hours, and because nobody else was doing any work, I had a phenomenal amount of work to do. So builders were happy in the sense of the building owners were happy. All the maintenance is getting done. Small projects were getting done. There was cash being generated through some of the tenants, because we had like little shops and stuff inside there, so we used to change their lights and do bits for them as well, and that was all cash generating because it's separate outside the contract. But yeah, that I did quite well on that. I made a fair bit of cash on that because we used to come in at about 6 in the morning and work till 8-10 at night, 6 days a week, and have 1 day off. But yeah, that was alright. Yeah, John Fox. Yeah, technology would be good for us. We're still in paper and personal phones. Personal phones? I don't even know we're allowed to use a personal phone in the firm I work for. It's not for business calls. I'm sure you can't. I'm sure that'll be a slap on the wrist scenario. But the paper-based, I got rid of that. We were paper-based before I arrived. It's not anymore. It's all digital. I'm trying to evolve other bits in there, but yeah, fully understand where you're coming from, because the problem you get with that is they copy this, fill in the form, photocopy it, archive it, keep another copy over here, copy in site, copy in the office, all that nonsense. Go digital. I mean, even because some of our documents when we do a project can be 200, 300 pages long. So when all the payments and that are on there, you've got to get signed by the client, etc. That's all. So you've got to print it all, sign your bit, give it to the client signs it, then scan it all back in. It doesn't sound a lot until you're doing about 200, 300 projects, standing by the photocopier going chung 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 for absolutely ages. Now it's like all PDF. The contractor send it in PDF. We put the packs together, goes into the client digitally. They digitally sign it, comes back, done. That just doing that, I'd say, it would save me about probably 6 weeks a year just from digitising that. William and Wenge in the Philippines. Hi guys, how's everyone? I'm good. Don't know about everybody else. Hope everyone else is well. But yeah, I mean, we talked about a fair bit of stuff today. I mean, talking about a lot of the stuff I do in work. But yeah, I mean, there was a question raised about when I'm going back to the Philippines about 2 weeks ago. At the moment, who knows what's going on with the state of play with COVID. I get my personal view is does seem to be a bigger picture getting played. Just by the way every country seemed to adopt the same processes for dealing with this COVID situation. It's just very peculiar because normally countries do the complete opposite as each other just out of the ability to do that, So it all seems very odd at the minute. But we were hoping to go this year. We'll wait and see. I know my wife doesn't like travelling at the end of the year, typhoon season, etc. So we'll just have to play it out by ear, see what happens. Obviously, the Philippines isn't so welcoming at the moment because obviously they're in a bit of a lockdown as well. So I think we'll sit on that one. But yeah, we're looking at travelling over. Got to buy a property this year as well. We banked a fair chunk of cash already, but like I said, we've seen a nice property now that we do like. So I'm just working on a few ventures, and I'm hoping some of them will drop in the next 2 months. Because if we get one of those drop, there'll be enough cash flow for at least the deposit. But it's a nice apartment, nice penthouse one. But we'll get there. I mean, one of the things I have learned over the last few years is to stop trying to push things and force things. Because one of the problems you get, like now, COVID situation, completely out of our control. Brexit situation, completely out of our control. Because even the ham sandwich fiasco that's going on with the Dutch refusing people from the UK, truck drivers bringing their sandwiches in, it's comical at the same time. It's just a bit mad, but this stuff will be ongoing for a while now. It's not stuff we can control. It's not stuff that we can dictate or even work with because they keep changing everything. Because it's such a mess, this will keep evolving over the next year. Because you'll get countries like, I know some people have been talking about Spain's become more restrictive. It's probably in line with European legislation. But you'll suddenly find they'll start easing it off at some point because they suddenly see it starts affecting the economy. At which point they'll start going, okay, we can review the terms and conditions because these were originally set up based on X, where now we can sit and go, right, we want more tourism, you want more Spanish doctors and nurses, let's be sensible about this. Which you can do once they're fully out, and obviously gone through this transition period of starting to go through everything bit by bit. Bit like work, taking it from paper-based to digital. It doesn't happen overnight. It just takes ages to do, and you'll get people contest it, the bureaucrats, the little tin god syndrome, where people think they're more important than they really are, and all that will suddenly start to make life a bit easier, but it ain't gonna happen for... I think this year's a write-off again, like last year. I do think we'll have more movement around after March because the flu season will end, but believe me, it does seem that the UK, they're tightening their thumb screws down more and more, and as long as people are accepting to it, there won't be any challenges. It really won't. I don't know. I mean, wasn't it Boris when he was the mayor of London? Wasn't he the one that got the water cannons and stuff? And then they were cancelled by Sadiq Khan. I mean, that just sums up Boris, to be fair. I have zero trust in that guy. John Fox, they pay us £40 a month to use them. Agency rates, I don't blame you. I had a 3-month contract for an agency, the pay was good. There is loads of work, mate. As an electrician, there is loads of work. You'll make far more. You'll make as much money in probably 4 months of the year than you will in your current job for a year. I used to do that. That's why I went to the Philippines. I used to just work 3 or 4 months of the year because I made that much money. It didn't pay me to work any longer. But then I put in for my tax rebate because I hadn't worked a full year, so I got money back as well. So it is a route worth looking at, and if you get in touch with me on LinkedIn, I'll put you in touch with some of the agencies that I work with, because they'll find work with you for you within a week. I mean, on the agency, to be perfectly blunt, most of the 90s I worked on agency full time, and I made way more than most of my friends were. They were on like 26, 28 grand. I was making about 80,000 a year. And at the same time, were we doing anything different? The answer is no. I remember Hack Kitchens, they're paying their own guys, I think it was only about £4 an hour, yet the agency guys were £12 an hour, and they're working side by side doing exactly the same job. And that's how I got into the exhibition work, when I used to be an exhibition carpenter, and that's where I sort of progressed from that all the way to where I am today. I've just progressed, went and did whatever was paying. You know, I was doing computer screens, plasma screens, audio setups, electrical installations, the lighting rigs, the constructing the stands, did the mini launch, did loads of stuff. But yeah, pay was great. But then I was hopping into the exhibitions because it's seasonal, and back onto the FM stuff, which is regular. But you don't get the hours, because on the exhibition circuit, you do 100 hours in a week, yeah, without even breaking a sweat. Well, you would break a sweat, but I mean, the hours were there, because when you're doing it, you're doing it. You just take the money. I worked for Mighty, the Cybershop 123. I worked for Mighty at one time, 8 hours a day. I had to have paperwork to cover my full working hours. Yeah, that reminds me of the old council days, to be honest. Council used to be like that, because we used to work on the minutes book. I did the council on the agency as well before. And like you go like changing the key of a lock, 15 minutes, all this sort of lovely stuff. And they never calculated in the going backwards and forwards to the yard. It was the job price, the minutes were based on being there. So you get like replacing a new front door and painting it. I think that was a full day. That's an 8-hour job. But then you get a door that needed priming, painting, cutting down, cutting the hinges, fitting the lock, doing a lot. But once you got it set up with a router or whatever, you could do it quite quick. But one thing I was never good at was painting the bloody things. These days, if I was doing the same job, I'd ask if there was somewhere I could spray paint the thing, and I'd get the primer on it at least before I even took it out of the yard. Venture MGTOW, I love being a Bitcoin millionaire. I can speak the truth about the virus and other things without getting fired from my job. I won't speak it here though. I don't want to get your channel banned. Yes, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's funny how social media has been so fenced in. It was all this freedom of information, freedom to speak, and everything else. Yet there is so much of it that is so fenced in. People are worried about what they're saying. Because even when you look at the Oculus, the new VR headsets, they're linked to your Facebook account. So I presume if your Facebook account was banned, there's a risk of your headset being banned. I presume, that's I can't say it's fact. I've heard people talking about Reddit and whatever, but I haven't heard one person who's actually had it directly. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff being fenced in, and this isn't a free society, in my personal opinion. I think it's a very censored society, because you don't know where the restraints are. You don't know where do you start, because it suddenly goes from you can talk like this to you're banned. And it's like, well, I only said one thing about it. It's like the criteria is so vague where their limits are. This is why I stress a lot my personal opinion, because my personal opinion is I'm allowed that. That is what I'm allowed. But don't get me wrong, because contextually, if somebody made look at Trump. So Trump has got this political thing going on at the moment over in the US, and then the PGA Tour are looking at stripping his golf club of having the tournament there, whatever they're up to. So the point being is, you take one context, which is his politics, and you take it into his business. And that seems to be the norm now. So if you say something wrong on here, people should be able to hunt you down on LinkedIn or whatever and try and get you fired, because that's perfectly that's what society is about, isn't it? That's wrong. That's a very sick society. But that's the way a lot of this is moved, and I would say it's probably more on the left side of the political realms than the right. Just by some of the stuff I've seen over the last few years, where people have taken their opinion and then expressed it as fact, and then when challenged, you become the problem, even though you're actually just saying, but your information's wrong, and it's not a group information, it's your specific opinion. But because you're in such a little bubble, you refuse to allow anyone to challenge you on your thoughts. Whatever that criteria is. See, I keep that vague, but the point being is everybody knows what I'm talking about. It could be race, it could be mobility, it could be anything. The point being is they create these things where this must be done this way, because my opinion is this is now fact, this has to be done. And if you don't agree with me, you must be a racist, you must be this, you must be that. It's like, no, I'm just saying it's not correct. Opinions are based on more than one person. Otherwise, we call that fascism. Yeah, it's good you've done well on the Bitcoin. I know Jay's done well on the Bitcoin. Myself, I did all right a couple of years back. I mean, we lived on it for a year. Bought a new car, all that sort of lovely stuff. So I can't grumble. I've still got a bit in there, but because we're buying a house, I liquidated a lot of stuff for the property. So yeah, I didn't catch it this time round, but I'll wait and see. I mean, like most things, it'll do a cycle. Once it goes the other way on the cycle, that's when I'll do a buy-in again, because hopefully by then I've bought the property, which is my main concern at the minute. I'm a bit risk adverse when it comes to family life, so making sure that the castle's built before I start taking in more risks. Venture MGTOW, careful brother, don't say anything more, the censors are waiting to ban you. Yeah, there's a lot of people hovering around. I mean, I've seen stuff on Facebook. It's quite a funny one, because of the guy I've known for years. I mean, I don't even remember when we first met. I mean, it's probably 20 years ago. But he has a group which is, they draw, because he just messes around. I mean, you can't have a proper conversation with him, but that's just the way he is. He just messes around. So they started a group where they draw male parts on newspaper articles, and that's all it is. I mean, that's literally the title of the Facebook group is this, and that's all they do. But several of them have been banned in their own group, and yet that's the whole concept of the group, is these stupid photos of people holding male appendices or put in peculiar ways just out of their own amusement, and yet they can still be banned for doing that, or they get a weekly ban or something. Myself, I've got to admit, I don't actually sit there and draw on newspapers because I don't even own a newspaper. but that's what they do in their spare time. But it just shows you how mad some of this stuff is, because it's not even like a public group. So it is a very odd scenario, because they're not hurting anybody. It's just random acts of nonsense. But yeah, it's very odd. John Fox, yes, I agree about Boris as well. The stats don't tally up with what you really see. Most of the Nightingale hospitals have been dismantled as well. But surely they can't be. We're being told we're already at this peak now. We're at this worst. It's only going to get worse. And yet, I'm sitting there going, I've worked with lots of government agencies, and I know the stuff that goes on in the background. It's nowhere near what the public eye see on a lot of stuff. I've talked about the house buyback schemes and stuff before, when old Gordon Brown was going bust with the economy. Back then, I was working with the housing associations, and they were being told to buy up entire housing estates, new builds, at market value to prop up the house prices, along with taking the buybacks to stop people going bankrupt and going into repossessions. So they're buying them back at market rate to sell back, to take the people back as tenants, because these were social houses bought by the people that were tenants. Then they mortgaged them to the hill and whatever, bought new cars, whatever they did with it, going bust. So then the state bought them back, then rented them back to the same people, but often we're finding it's £18,000 to £19,000 to bring that house up to a standard we can rent it back to them, because of the decent home standard. In the UK, it's called a decent home standard that you have to adhere to as a housing association. So you're buying back a house that may be ex-council. So house associations have to buy an ex-council house. The house council, often their properties weren't at the same standard as the housing association. So you get like heating systems no longer compliant, gardens are right state, windows are not energy efficient, boiler needs replacing, all this lovely stuff. So we're buying it back at market rate, having to renovate it to a standard that we could actually rent it back to them, and then putting them back in there. All that sort of stuff doesn't really get pushed in the media too much. Nobody wants to know the truth of that, what really goes on. Well, not on the masses anyway. They like to just shout at me, say, Matt, you know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I work in this industry. Why ask me? Why ask a person who deals with stats all day long to work out the stats and say these numbers don't add up? You don't know what you're talking about. Boris knows what he's talking about. I know in a fortnight he'll get disproven, but shut up. That's what you're like. All right, I ain't gonna convert your mind. Benjamin McDowell, good idea. Real estate is pretty solid. Keep the taxes and upkeep paid, and it's great money, saving and income generating potential. I went the other way through. Sold my house in 2018. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we rent this house at the moment. And the new one we want is a little bit bigger, because one of the problems I do have is I do not have a man space, because we've got a 3-bedroom apartment on the coast. We've got a small balcony. The one we do like's a lot more money, but we're buying it. But it's got 3 balconies. One of those I'll convert. Well, probably 2 of them I'll convert. One will be the man space, and the other one will be for all our lovely plants, because we've got a phenomenal amount of plants. and the last one will be barbecues and sitting there getting the suntan. So that's where we want to head. And obviously we're heading into a recession, whether we like it or not. Because I think it's just been delayed. That's the only thing. Because of this whole suppression stuff with the COVID, they're not really talking about it, because all you get in media is COVID, Brexit, COVID, Brexit. There's no talking about the GDP. There's no talking about economic crash. No talking about manufacturing collapsing. None of that stuff, which is going to be coming. And don't get me wrong, I think there could be a boom on the end of it, which I'm looking forward to if it does happen. But I do think we're going to get a dip before we get anything moved, because it needs COVID off the table. The media need to get COVID off the table before anything can move forward. Vention MGTOW bought some crypto with some of the house money, got some ETH at 160 now, it's 1100, and bought more Bitcoin at 4,500 during the virus panic crash. Buy when there is blood in the water. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm not in a rush at the minute, because the house is the most important thing. That's my family security. After that, I'm back to investing. I'm working on a couple of other business deals. Well, 5 different business deals, completely all different stuff. If I can get a couple of those to land, I'll probably make a lot more money on those than I would of money I put in crypto anyway, which is why I can sort of sit back a bit. It is a bit of hard work, but this is why I'm sort of focusing, setting this stuff up. I go back to work on the 18th. From the 18th, set up my next program of works for my contractors, and then I'll drop back to try and start moving some of these projects forward, because I'll be back in work mode. At the moment, I'm trying to not do as much work as I normally do, because time this year is quite precious, the family time, because of we don't know what the restrictions will be when I try to come back again. So I'm just enjoying time with the family at the minute. But once I go into work mode, it's going to be full throttle. I need to generate a lot more money. But we'll get there. Well, it's like anything, we will get there. I just got to take your time on some stuff. John Fox, yep, I agree about the stats. My maths is okay. I'm spotting flaws in the data, and it's not my job. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, for some companies, I found millions missing that nobody else had seen. I'm not allowed to give any specifics. It's not with the company I'm with now, but there's more than one company that I found lots of money missing that they hadn't even seen. So yeah, I'm pretty good at my numbers. I do know what I'm doing. I generally find that my clients and everything think I'm fantastic, and I start blowing my own trumpet. Is quite simply because I turn things around quite quick. I know where we're heading. I know how to get us in the right direction. I know how to count. So, yeah, it is a very odd environment to be in right now. Venture MGTOW, we're already in a recession. It's just been partly hidden by massive amounts of printing money. It is, but at the same time, the UK is not documenting anything, in the sense that you're not hearing too much on homelessness. I think they've suppressed the recession, the repossessions at the minute around the COVID scenario. When that bubble bursts, that will be a massive one. That could crash the housing market in the UK. And if it crashes the housing market in the UK, that could then do the same in Spain, because obviously, although they're not directly linked, you've got the Brexit stuff that's delaying stuff a bit at the moment, but then you've got on top of that, people that were going to move over suddenly find my house price has just crashed. I was going to leverage a mortgage over here on that to pay for the house in Spain. Suddenly they're not doing it now. Then the bubble bursts in Spain alongside it, because there's an excessive amount of properties in Spain. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of empty properties, and they keep constructing all the time. There's a lot of negative equity still around. There's still a opportunity for the market to crash a little bit. I'm not expecting a massive drop, because it never fully recovered. I mean, you're still paying probably 80,000 for a property that was 180,000 in the peak. So it never fully recovered back to where it was at the height of the boom. I think people are a bit more cautious with the cash. but it doesn't mean it can't fall. If like I said, the UK market gets hit and it suddenly drives up the cost of living or whatever, there could be some massive opportunities to do a buy-in. CIBI 96.8. Morning, Matt. Morning, mate. How's it going? I hope it's all going well for you. Venture MGTOW, I could smell the stink of this recession coming back in 2018. I expected another 2008. I didn't expect them to scare everyone into locking down while the elite steal everything. It's a fantastic environment to be in if you're ahead of Amazon or... I suppose some of the ones that are feeling a little bit of pain is landlords. I'm not talking about people with HMOs and multi-tenancy places. I'm talking about ones that own some of these bigger estates, shopping centres. Because if they're getting squeezed, guess what? It means the bigger fish will be picking them off where they can. Because if you, we're just talking. We're just talking here. We're not talking facts. We're just talking conversation piece. So, would they be picking up those prime estates? Because I think Primark's put its Oxford Street store up for sale, hasn't it? Is it? Yeah, I think it has. So the point being is there's some prime real estate coming up, and obviously we're looking at this home working scenario as being a bigger thing, which means office space will be, properties will be cheaper as well, surely. Not in the commercial market, but I'm just throwing that out there. It does seem there'll be opportunities to buy everything up. Yes, foreclosures are going to start happening soon in the US. Expect there'll be some great deals when 2022 rolls around. I'll have my bitcoins ready to snap up a nice rural homestead by then. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. That's what I say. I'm not in a rush. I've missed Bitcoin this time around, but like I said, I'm not grumbling. I put $400 in when we first started, when I was doing it with Jay, and I took over 110,000 euros out. I don't think that's a bad return on investment. So I can't grumble. It's not something I'm really particularly bothered about. If I'd had the money in there, it'd be nice, but I didn't. So I think my portfolio has probably got about 40,000 in there. But even that, I'm not even going to touch it. I'm just going to leave it. But the point being is the markets are about to change. The COVID stuff slowed everything down because I don't know if the US has done the same, but they've made it difficult to evict people if it's COVID related and all this sort of stuff. But all that's going to do is, like I said, when the bubble does go, it's going to go with a massive bang. Because suddenly you're going to have the usual people being thrown out their homes alongside all these ones that have been suppressed for a year, which will make it a massive shift. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, a perfect time to be buying up, that's for sure. Yeah, John Fox sounds like very much like the Great Reset. It's it's not a great reset, but it's definitely I'd say it definitely looks like a cash grab. It definitely looks like we're looking at businesses above our pay grade will be swooping in and taking things over while it's all on the cheap. I do expect we'll get bank bailouts again, in my personal opinion, off the taxpayer. At the same time, I do expect, in my personal opinion, the same people that will be doing the mop-up will be buying up the banks at a later date again, and possibly profiteering from that as well, in my personal opinion. Venture MGTOW, indeed, many opportunities during times of strife like this, if you can avoid panicking and keep your eyes open. Exactly. The best opportunities are always in chaos. That's the reality, because the markets aren't... people think with stress in a very different way to people with a cool head. So if you're in a better position than most, then the opportunities are going to be there. While others are selling, you're buying. That's just nature of the beast. Keenan Akil, hello Matt. Any thoughts on Guatemala living and owning a small business, a news agent perhaps? Newsagents may be an odd one this day and age, but it's hard to tell because Guatemala's the next town to me. It's just up on my left here. It's an odd one simply because a lot of people don't read newspapers anymore, but the average age in this area I think is 68. So a lot of people do read newspapers, but a lot of the newspapers here from the expat communities are free. So yeah, it'd be a difficult business to set up, to be fair. Don't get me wrong, I do struggle because I do like reading magazines. I buy a lot of books and magazines, which is difficult to locate in Spain. Even in the UK, I've got to go and hunt down a bookstore. I mean, I go. What's that? Can you put the kettle on, my love? I go down to Rushden. Rushden has a bookstore there that does a lot of things like manga and all sorts of stuff. It's got art stuff. It's got it's mixed. There's all sorts of things that you don't find in Waterstones, for example. So I go in there and I'll spend about 2 hours just going around finding stuff that I can't find anywhere else. And I think last time I spent about £100 on books in there. But I go there, go to Waterstones. So yeah, I do think there's opportunity for a decent bookstore because they're hard to find. But a newsagent may be a difficult one. General convenience store, you'll probably find you'll get a lot of support on that. And if you spoke to some of the local businesses in the area, they'll probably support you. You know, in the sense of maybe doing some of the fruit stuff, maybe doing some of the getting local wine and stuff in there. Yeah, I mean, just as you go into Guatemala, you got the main roundabout, just head in, there's a little bit of a big car park, then a slip road. Just down there, there's an organic shop that's doing really well. That's the landlord of this place we live in. They've got an organic farm that's the other side of the road up towards the Lemon Tree Market. That's been in that family's name for about 300 years. And they do a lot of old organics fruit because they use old seeds, so you've got to try it. But the point being is you may be able to do something with them. The organic market, I think, is a growing market. I think in Spain it's about 67 to about 70% organic anyway, from most produce from the farming. But there's definitely opportunities there. A lot of it's thinking out the box. It's thinking of stuff that people aren't doing already. The other thing is you've got there, you could be doing key holding for people, so that people can pick keys and stuff up from you for the rentals, all that sort of stuff. Just got to think out the box. That's what I say. I wouldn't expect to just open a shop and it'll just run itself. I think those days are gone. A lot of the Spaniards do it, but to be fair, there is they have this small business association in the area. Recommend joining that. But also a lot of them have their pensions in the background, the bit you don't see. So a lot of them do it to keep busy, for someone to do. So it's not as cut and dry as it looks on the surface. CBI 1968. Matt, I'm hoping to move over full time in 2 or 3 years' time. How do you think the criteria for residency will change? €1,000 per month and own a property in La Marina, so no rent needed. The entire market could change over the next year. It could be going down. The value of the euro could devalue. There's so many things that could change. Because I mean, at the moment, I do expect that this year is going to be stuck in limbo. I do expect we're going to see a lot of house repossessions and changes. Spain, UK, whatever. Also, the Brexit is going to be unravelling over the next year. When I say unravelling, at the moment, this is the criteria, I expect that to change. Now, if you've been in Spain long enough, you'll know they change it all the time anyway. Because originally, I think the residency here, you just needed €6,000. And then they realised some people were moving the €6,000 between accounts. So then they changed that. They wanted money every month. And then they changed that. And then they changed it. So the current criteria, I think it's just been set up based on the fact of the Brexit is still a work in progress. I haven't really looked into it, but I assume it probably matches the same criteria as if you were coming from America or somewhere else outside the EU. And over time, there'll be an adjustment to make it easier to come into Spain. But I do think as a couple, realistically about 1,600 per month. I'd base it on that because currently that they find that sort of number acceptable, and I don't think it's going to change much because the market's not going to boom here or the UK or pretty much anywhere for this year. And I think for Alicante Airport, they're talking recovery is going to be a minimum of 3 years. So I don't think much is going to change on that environment. CRBI 1968, not retired, is only 55 then. So they're going to be looking for regular income, which will be about 1,600 a month as a couple. Realistically, I don't see that changing much. I mean, that's what's bizarre. That's what I found it really difficult trying to get them to understand, though, and more online. They want me to have a job locally, I'm saying, but you do realise the average wage in this area is virtually nothing. I can earn what people are getting paid in a month here, in a week, online. But yeah, I mean, when I went to Alicante, it wasn't an issue. It was just the local office. It's the interpretation of the rules. But yeah, realistically, I think about 1,600 a month. But I do think things will ease off because once the economy starts dropping, every country is going to want to be injecting cash. Now, the easiest way to inject cash for the Spanish economy, like they did with the Chinese, remember they gave them the tax free for 5 years. If they opened a business here, they will find a way to alleviate that pressure. So if it turns around and says, right, let's take some, we know that the Brits always buy on the coast, let's take some pressure off it. That's realistically what will happen. What that will look like, no idea. But I do expect over the next 6 months, some of that will start changing already, because they want the Brits back on holiday here. Don't get me wrong, they don't like the binge drinking and the tomfoolery, but they do want the Brits here, and they certainly want the cash here. So they're not going to be trying to move away from that, but they will be trying to find ways that works for Spain and for the UK. So over time, it will get easier. That's for sure. CIBI 1968, not retired. Oh, sorry, we already did that one. Keenan Akil, sorry, I used the wrong word. I meant a small to medium corner shop, something like 7-Eleven. Yeah, there's always a business for those. Especially in high season. The main thing here is to absolutely hammer it in high season as much as possible. Be open as long as you can and take as much money as you can. In Torrevieja, there is a 24-hour corner store that does alcohol, and I think it's the only one in the area. So the point being is, if you could do that in Guatemala, I'm sure you'll find a way just on alcohol sales in high season. Would keep your business afloat all year round easily. So yeah, there's opportunities there. The other thing is you can look at other things in there, maybe things like the Amazon delivery. And the other ones that do the online orders, there's a lot of stuff like that, scooter rentals. Yeah, the opportunity is there. The other thing is now some of these places have already been absolutely hammered, because obviously the tourism has been absolutely hammered this year. So some of these places may even be up for sale. The ones you won't, like I said, the Spanish ones will probably stay because a lot of them are on their pensions anyway. They don't care. A lot of it is just their community stuff where they like to be busy doing, talking with the locals, all that sort of stuff. It's a bit like my mother-in-law in the Philippines. Doesn't need to run the Sari store, but it's where she speaks to everybody. Everyone comes in, gets all the latest gossip, all that sort of stuff. Gives a reason to get up in the morning and something to do. But a lot of it is so you can actually speak with other people, where if you retire, a lot of people struggle to find something to do, or they get into bad habits or whatever. So yeah, so just be aware the Spanish stuff probably won't be hammered, but anything that's probably expat related in the sense of funded by expats and purely reliant on the funding may be struggling to stay open right now, which gives you an opportunity when it does quieten down. CIBI 968, cheers mate, you're welcome mate. John Fox, just had a call out, thanks for the advice, I'll find you on LinkedIn and add you, have a good day. You too mate, and take it easy. Mick, hi. Mike, how's the house price in Spain? Is it around the same as pre-COVID? There hasn't been that much movement, but on the ones that were inflated value, I'll say some of them have dropped by as much as 20%. Best place to keep an eye on places is Idealista. There's a lot of private sellers on there. You will find a lot of real estate agents, pretend to be private owners, etc. But just monitor it, and you'll see some of them actually tell you the variance in prices. But my best recommendation is always find the seller. Find the seller directly will save you about €6,000. From my own experience and what I've seen, there's normally at least €6,000 saving just by finding somebody direct rather than dealing with an agent. Venture Migtail, tourism over there may be getting impacted by their gender courts there. A woman can make any kind of accusation against you and off you go to the guilty until proven innocent man hating gender courts. The media in the UK has always been like that. That's just normal. The UK has that in the media. It's a sad state of affairs, and I think even if you're proven innocent in the UK, they don't have to disclose the person who made the case against you. How great is that? Venture Migtail wouldn't even consider travelling to Spain. Yeah, I find Spain, I love Spain, but I can understand some of the politics behind it. It is a very socialist country. I mean, the rights of a property owner is less than the tenant or even the squatter in many cases. Although they are on about changing some of those, but we'll wait and see. Trickley, that can happen anywhere, wrong place, wrong time. Yeah, it's how lucky you are. Yeah, it's Venture Migtail, but Spain has special courts just for gender related issues. Stay away from crazy women if you can. Yeah, that's always the best advice given. Stay away from crazy people. Alright guys, I've got to go and paint an apartment downstairs. I've got a bedroom to do. My wife's come up with the idea we'll do a feature wall on it to say painting the whole room, because the rest of the room's fine. But we just had did some plastering work last night, so I just want to tidy it up a bit. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, it's a 2-hour video. I think this is the longest video I've done. If you want to see any more videos, please comment, and I'll try and do one of these at least once a week now. Like I said, work's settling down, because I only realised this week I've been there for nearly a year and a half. I thought it was only about a year, but it shows you how much time they've absorbed off me. Because I've literally been 24/7 on the work, because it was so far behind. It's took me a lot of time to actually correct it. Trickley, nice to catch up with you. Yeah, you too guys, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Take care and have a great one.